It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, February 3rd, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content. Does not like getting shut out for a third game in a row, Russ.
I'm looking to the future, Rachel.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here, as always, with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to fanduel.com to get started. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to get to more about the big trade and what Danny Briere had to say about it, some follow-up with the additional transactions around the league. Plus, it's Monday, so we'll have our nemesis of the week, and the salary cap official numbers came out too. So much to get to today. But of course, this game against the Avalanche from yesterday, third game in a row shutout. It's a franchise record, which is never good to set those in a bad direction. And one of the things that kind of led to the awkwardness of the game is having to go 11-7 because Andrei Kuzmenko and Jakob Pelletier's visas aren't through. Unclear if they'll be ready for Tuesday. It seems like the Flyers are hoping so, but there's no guarantee at this point. But in addition, we had Egor Zamula officially put on IR, which is not great. Adam Ginning was sent back down to the Phantoms. Jacob Gaucher got a call up for his first NHL game. Not a great first NHL game to be in. So sad to say for him. Meanwhile, Owen Tippett traveled with the team and was getting whatever work done he needed to, but not ready to come back yet either. So that kind of set the stage for a really uncomfortable 11-7. Not great at altitude to have to go 11-7,
No,
right?
no. I mean, again, there's always options. They chose this option. There's other guys in Lehigh. You can call up a body if you want to. And when you call them up, if you're, going to play them, then you could do that. But this is what they chose, right? So you have to just, this is what the coach is wanting to do. And I do have other things to question, but that would definitely be the first.
Yeah, and they did call up Alexei Kolosov as well, and to have him travel with the team on this trip. And that is certainly a choice in terms
It's a choice.
of doing that versus having another
A
extra
forward?
forward
Yeah.
around. I do understand it to some degree because, the AHL's on their all-star break right now. We'll talk about Ollie Lixel at the all-star game on tomorrow's show. But like, I think that they, since he wasn't going to play anyway, since they're on all-star break, they probably thought, oh, it's better to have him practicing with the Flyers in this circumstance. But it's certainly not the choice I would have made, but I'm just trying to
No.
put myself in their shoes and say,
No,
what
I
were
get
they
it.
thinking?
I get it. Look, I mean, I feel for the players because, the
Yeah.
end of that game was like a bag skate. Like that's really what it
Yeah.
turns into. When we get to the shifts and stuff, I'll talk about it. It was brutal. And the first thing I had noticed in this game, and this was before the power play, was these very short shifts for Matvei Michkov. He had at least 4 of 20
Mhm.
seconds. And it's like, okay, why? Why? And he didn't have a registered shot on net the entire game. Now, of course, they did use him a lot on the power play, and we could talk about that. But, I saw Bill Meltzer stopped a video and showed where Michkov was trying to cheat last
Mhm.
game and to get a home run pass. We talked about that all summer. Like, this is nothing new. This is
Right.
in his
That's his
DNA.
game.
That's his game. You're now taking that out of his game, and that's one thing another team now no longer has to worry about offensively. So, like, okay, you're going to teach them the hard two-way game and your team can't score. And forget
Right.
about the 3 shutouts, which is a record, right? That's a new record for the Flyers. I looked up the last 10 games. It's 22 goals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are we talking about here?
I mean, that's not a lot of scoring. So Michkov didn't get any scoring chances either, which is not great. And when you have such short shifts out there, he can't ramp up to getting those quality scoring chances in that short a period. And I think that's what was going on there.
Yeah, and he was definitely, you could see there was frustration on him. He doesn't have to be pounding his stick to see it. But the other thing is, even when you have him out there for a fair amount of the power play, why is he playing high? What good is Matvei
Yes.
Michkov high? What? Tell me in what world he should be playing high when he scores all of his goals pretty much from like 12 feet away or behind the net or next to the net.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was because of adjustments they had to make for this weird roster situation, but I don't think so. I
No,
really
I don't
don't.
think so. I think that you
Yeah.
could easily, I mean, if nothing else, 6-on-5, they could have just called a timeout at some point and just said, okay, let's go back to the other way if they did that, which, so I don't think they did that.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is with missing guys, the team was so slow, and that was a huge part of it as well in this game. And that's why, the odd man rushes were
Yeah.
so bad in the other
Yeah.
direction, is because the Flyers, without those extra guys from Calgary yet, are especially slow and especially slow down the middle.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's a part of it. And that was going to be the way, and even when they get their new players, yes, they'll be faster, but these guys have to work their way into the lineup. We don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen with
Nope.
that.
Totally. Totally. Jacob Gaucher used very limited in this first NHL game for him, but he was 3 for 3 on faceoffs, so I'm gonna give him that credit.
Got to give it to
Um,
him. We only played 808, so
yeah, he was out there mostly with, Lawton and Hathaway on a makeshift fourth line, and sometimes out there with Forster and Hathaway in the rotation. I thought that was a good spot for him to start. And I'm hoping we'll see him in more games. And I did not mention Emil Andre about
right.
as far as the call ups earlier. He was in the game. I thought, given the 7D situation, it was kind of hard to see how guys were working
Yeah.
together. But I think that I would have liked to see him used a little bit more and a little bit more strategically in this
Me too.
game.
Me too. I mean, he got some power play chances, great.
Yeah,
But he also, there were times when the flow was much better when he was in the game because the
yeah.
puck, the way it moves, but again, we just didn't see enough of it because, like you said, with the 11-7, he wasn't going to be able to be used enough that way.
Yeah. Now Rasmus Ristolainen missed the remainder of the game after that power play goal, which he was like almost in the line of fire, and you could see him drift a little bit out of the lane, which created that
Yeah.
shooting lane
Yeah.
and allowed the Colorado Avalanche to score that goal. And I'm wondering if maybe something tweaked, which is why he drifted.
It's possible.
But we'll see as far as the injury go, as far
We'll
as
know if they call
out,
somebody up, then he's hurt.
right, or they don't send Andre back
Or they
down.
don't send Andre back or whatever. Yeah, we'll know
Yeah,
soon.
yeah, we will know soon. We don't as of recording here. I think, first of all, Natchez had a tremendous game.
Mhm.
Absolutely everywhere. Kind of pissed we had to face him since he got traded out of division,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
that happens, I guess. But Noah Cates had some really amazing play in this game.
Mhm.
Still trouble at the faceoff dot.
Oh,
But
yeah,
to be
lots of
fair,
trouble.
literally, other than Gaucher, everybody was bad at the
Sure.
faceoff dot. So
Okay, I mean, that's fair.
the Avs are just good at
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But
There's no doubt they're good. I was, again, when we were talking about the power play, and you're talking about Konechny and Richard and Forster, who I didn't think was having a particularly good game, all got at least 2 minutes of power play time at altitude. I mean, again, that's in a situation where it's a 6-on-4 and then a 6-on-5, and they did a lot of skating, and I could see Konechny was getting tired. He played 25 minutes this game at altitude. Again, these are not things you if nothing else, you got to put other guys out there. You could have thrown Hathaway out there. You could throw anybody. At some point, guys just have to rest.
Yeah, I think so. And it was tough. And I did not like what was going on in the 6-on-4 and 6-on-5, which
No.
again, was a problem for the
At one point,
Flyers
they didn't even
out
look like
there.
they had extra players. Jim Jackson said, "Well, they got 2 extra players out there," and it's like, yeah, we can't note. We haven't even noticed it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And after the game, Torts said, it wasn't really about like the lack of push or the lack of effort there, that they just weren't developing plays. And he is correct that they were doing
Sure,
stuff,
okay,
but it wasn't developing plays, and you have to execute.
right.
And that is absolutely correct.
But your best play developer didn't have a shot on net. He's your
Yeah.
best play developer, him or Konechny. And again, you're not putting him in a position he should be in the top 6. You're not putting him in a position to succeed, especially in games like this where you'd like to see some scoring. Like, you got to think in the game against Utah, I would have him on the top line
I
because
think you have to.
I think
I
I
think
would
you
make a
have to now.
statement and say, listen, we need to get off the schneid here, and I'm putting Michkov out there on the top line and a lot more than I have been. Will they do that? I don't know.
All right. Well, more to come on that as we approach the Utah game. We're going to talk about that on tomorrow's show. In the meantime, Danny Briere had a presser the 2 days after the big trade due to his travel schedule. We're going to dig into that and try and read between the tea leaves and talk about the other deals and how it relates coming up next.
Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. I still go with the under here. That's what I feel like. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of the Super Bowl 59.
We will talk Flyers versus Utah Hockey Club tomorrow, as well as check in on Ollie Lixel at the AHL All-Star Game and talk about where the Phantoms are at their All-Star break. Plus, we'll answer your mailbag questions on Wednesday's show. A lot of good comments on our YouTube channel about the big trade. If you have questions related to that or anything else going on with the Flyers, let us know by emailing us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. You can send us a message on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers as well, or comment on YouTube. So after the Flyers' big trade last week that sent Frost and Farabee to the Flames, some other deals went through. We talked about some potential 1Cs that could, come our way if the Flyers were aggressive as a result of creating that cap space. One of them was JT Miller. He is now a New York Ranger, unfortunately. Although a fun side effect for me personally is getting Philip Hedl out of the division because he's a Flyers killer.
You traded one for the other.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But aside from that, like, how do you feel about that deal? And to me, it makes it unlikely that the Canucks are going to deal Pettersson at this point.
Yeah, they're not going to trade him in season now. Maybe they trade
Right.
him in the off season, but if Pettersson starts to pick it up, they won't trade him at all. So I think the odds of him getting traded now are like 30%.
Yeah. And, I think it's an interesting deal for the Rangers for sure. I think
it's not going to help them this year. They're dead in the water.
I don't
this
think
year.
so either.
No, they're dead in the water. It will help them for next year, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the Dallas Stars traded for Michael Granlund and Cody Ceci
That's a big
from
trade.
the Sharks. Yeah. And gave up their first round pick this year and a conditional third for this year as well. So that's going all in, right?
That's going all in, saying we expect to make it to the Stanley Cup, and so we'll give up these picks. I get it.
Now with all this, is Dylan Cousins still on the table, or is he going to remain a Buffalo Sabre?
No, I think he's still on the table, but I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room. When we heard about the Flyers getting Kuzmenko, he was on the Flyers were on his no trade list. So
Mhm.
Keith Jones and Danny Briere had to talk him into coming. So this place is not a destination right now. And so the problem is now with someone like Cousins, he has no say in it. So
Right.
unless the Sabres are really say, hey, where do you want to go? Which they could, uh, that probably doesn't play into him. But for other future free agents, it does play into it. And so that's something where you have to remember that I think the Flyers had interest in JT Miller, but the Rangers got it done. And I think this is going to happen to the Flyers more than a few times now in the future too, until things pick up and the place becomes more of a destination again.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and you know, the off season should be a bigger tell. I think.
Right. We'll have a better
With
idea then, but already I'm starting to see, small signs of it.
right, right now on Kuzmenko, particularly Danny Briere, I think was trying to like couch things a little bit
He
in
was.
his presser, saying, we'll see what we get with him,
Right.
and saying what everybody else has been saying. He had a good year a couple years ago, slow start, it'll be like an audition, right? And that's my
It's
word,
definitely an
not
audition.
his.
I mean, if you watch the Rick Tocchet uh, highlight reel of him talking about Kuzmenko, it's not great. You hear
Mhm.
other things and it's like, okay. But I also heard that as of today, John Tortorella hasn't spoken to him. And I just kind of wonder, even if they break through, is he going to, where's he going to talk to him? 10 minutes or a half hour in the morning before they play in a game that night? Like, I just feel like this timing is off on all of this. And, we don't know when their visas are going to work through, but certainly their phones work.
Yeah, that is definitely concerning, and it's not unexpected based on how Tortorella operates, that I feel like he kinda
Well, that's
designates that
something that
sort
needs
of
to
thing.
change in my estimation. It is.
Yeah, or he leaves it to players to do that sort of welcoming
Yeah,
in
sure.
because
But,
he wants the room cohesiveness
okay,
part
but
of it.
they do want to hear from the coach too. They do.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's the right approach, I'm
No,
just
I
saying
know.
that's kinda, based on the
Yeah.
locker room culture that
No,
they've
and the players
established.
did all the
It's
right
very
things.
player driven.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kinda how they do things there. For Jakob Pelletier, he's like, they like his energy
Hmm.
and he'll bring some speed, which is true,
Hmm.
and I think this is an absolute fresh start situation, and that's essentially what Danny Briere said.
Yeah, I mean, I have more hope for Peltier than I do for Kuzmenko, that's for sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a fresh start for him. He is going to have to battle though, because he is a smaller guy and he's going to have to find space in the NHL. And so far, he hasn't been able to do that.
Yeah. Now, as far as, why they traded Farabee and Frost, much as we suspected, it was for cap flexibility moving forward. He said that, positive development of other players allowed him to do that. And I
Mm,
think,
sorry, that doesn't work for me.
yeah, and I think that, what we talked about on our bonus episode last week was that, Farabee and Frost were the middle agers that even
Right.
though they had not been producing to the level that, the team wanted, and I think we would agree with that, just as far as
I mean,
points on the
last year,
board.
Farabee was really good, right? So he had
Right.
22 goals. He came off the neck surgery. He looked good. He wasn't having a great season this year, but it doesn't mean he's never going to have a great season again. That's,
100%.
yeah,
100%. So I think that's just the explanation he was giving.
right.
He's like, other guys had developed, these 2 weren't producing, uh, it could create the cap space we
Right,
needed,
but Morgan
so
Frost isn't really for
all of
cap
that.
reasons because he wasn't gonna cost you an arm and a leg even if you kept him for 1 more year on
Right.
an RFA. That's not for cap reasons. Farabee, yes. Frost,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, they're not concerned about the room, that the culture is
No, I
good
agree with
enough.
him on that. They were a
Yeah,
little stunned, though, and,
for sure.
I
I
mean, we
watched their
saw the
interviews
quote.
in
Yeah,
Calgary.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that God, I was feeling for them so bad, and I was like, "Oh, Joel Farabee, like, uh, he's a Philly guy
He's a
now."
great guy.
So,
I mean, I've had
yeah.
many chats with Farabee, and he's just a great guy, but, we move on. I
Yeah,
look to the
now
future.
right. Now, then the question becomes to Danny Briere, does this accelerate the timeline for adding guys to the roster given this new cap space, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, if people are talking about, hey, maybe they'll do offer sheets in the summer. Well, they can't use any of these picks for 2025 on offer sheets. and that's where they have the most picks. So I don't think they're setting up for an offer sheet. And I also think it's unfair for all of us, and I think to just say, well, hey, they've cleared this cap space. Now we're waiting for Danny's next move. He's trying, but again, like I said, they're not a destination. He's not going to necessarily be able to pull off a move right away. And I think that's something where I feel like he's got this undue pressure on him now to do that.
Right. I agree with that. And the other thing is that I feel like the Flyers needed to take a step forward this season as far as ending the season on a good note. I
Mhm.
did not expect necessarily the Flyers to make the playoffs this
Right.
year, but the way things ended last year with things kind of going south at the end of the season and knocking them out of playoff contention and just generally not doing well for the last, 3 to 4 weeks of the season,
Right.
right? And I just needed them to not do that again. Now, the good news is that there's a little bit of time left that,
Mhm.
they can turn it around, but given the less objective skill on the team, it's gonna be harder for them to do that.
Yeah, it definitely will be harder. I think this season has been a mixed bag for development anyhow. If you tell me 2 guys that have taken a step forward, I'll give you 3 that have taken steps back. So it's like,
Mhm.
I feel like it's a mixed bag so far.
Yeah, and so, I think cautious optimism is okay at this point, but I do think, there's absolutely still room. I wouldn't suggest that they're definitely gonna make the playoffs if they turn it around, but just turning it around and ending the season on a good note will help make the
Yeah, I
Flyers
think that's
a
just
destination, right?
it's a good goal to have. Uh, you don't wanna win 10 in a row because then you are gonna take yourself out of a good draft spot too, because don't kid yourself. Danny Briere can tell everybody, well, good things could happen. But today on the TV, on broadcast where he spoke for a very short time, he did keep talking about the future. So he's starting to lean that way where it's like, okay, he can't say he's tanking. Fine. He doesn't have to do that. But, you know, he knows the deal and he's trying to do that part.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, part of looking toward the future is dealing with a higher salary cap. We're going to talk about the numbers that came in from the league, as well as name our nemesis of the week coming up next. So this week is the week leading up to the Four Nations break. So we have the Utah game tomorrow, and then we've got the league leading, division leading Washington Capitals, which is going to be tough. And then the Pens, who are a hot mess, but can light it up just
Yeah,
randomly,
just in one game, they could kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is going to be a really important but tough week for the Flyers, especially having to acclimate the two new guys onto the
Yep.
team. But as far as what we were just talking about with Danny Briere, trying to turn our attention forward to the future with creating this additional cap space. Well, there's going to be even more cap space looking ahead, where it's going up to 95.5 million next year. After that, 104 million, and the year after that, 113.5 million. Now, when we talked about it in the bonus episode, as far as that additional cap space, we do have to remember that Michkov's contract is going to come in that last year. So
Hmm.
a bunch of that money is going to go toward Michkov.
Right.
You know, all, like, please let it all go towards Michkov because he's playing well and things are going well with him here, right?
Right. You have to
So,
save it for that. And there'll be some other players that come up too.
right. And so I think that it'll be good, but I mean, everybody's going to have this money, right? So it's obviously not just going to help the Flyers; it's going to help
No, that's
everybody.
gonna be a bidding war for everybody.
Right, right. And so I think that's what will make free agency a little bit more challenging for the
Hmm.
Flyers over the next couple of years, right?
Yeah, because everybody has more money, and that's a key thing. That's 95.5 is a lot. So teams are all going to be aggressive. They're all going to do what they can. Other teams will do what the Flyers did at the draft and try and, shed some more salary. And yeah, I mean, and this offseason is going to be very, very competitive for players that are out there. And you can't make the mistakes of the past where, well, these are the guys that are available, so we paid them really good money. Well, if they're not the right guys, you just hold on to your money. Like,
Yeah.
I know fans don't want to hear that, but you have to do it with the right guys. You can't just do it because guys are available.
Yeah. And Danny Briere said just that.
Right.
So that was really good to hear.
It was.
I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's the right message.
Yeah, I think so too. So we'll see. Although it's totally wild to me because if you look at the 2027, 28 cap, you look at the cap floor, which is 83.9 million will be the floor then. When
I
you're
know.
thinking,
What was
oh,
the
that
first
used to
cap
be the
back? Was like
cap,
69 or 70? Was it something like
something
that?
like that.
63 maybe? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Time flies when you're spending millions of dollars on hockey players. But um turning to our nemesis of the week. Last week, I talked a lot about the New Jersey Devils just because we had to play them twice, and that second game did not go well. It was
No.
very disappointing. I complained once again about the name of the team because I will complain about that for the end of time because the Jersey Devil is a South Jersey legend, not a North Jersey legend, and the team plays in Philadelphia, and South Jersey is Flyers land. Anyway, Russ, you talked about the Baltimore Orioles value menu, and we should
Mhm.
have more teams with more cheap food and beverage options. Utah, actually, where the Flyers are going next, has those
Yeah, that's
cheap
awesome,
food options. And the Flyers do have that dollar dog night that they
which is good.
replaced the Phillies doing. We
Mhm.
talked about that, so that's good. So my nemesis this week, however, is Sam Urson having to be a saint all the
Mhm.
time. And he- I I will be the first to admit he will let in a soft goal now and
Mhm.
then. But he is also the first to admit it and he owns it and he feels really bad about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he is just put in this position a lot where he has to kinda placate or and talk about this team in a positive way when things are not his fault in any way, shape, or form. And like he is doing the Lord's work there, and I appreciate it. And I just want him to know that like we see him out there doing that and going to bat for his teammates when they don't score for 3 games.
Yeah, he
And
shoulders a
I
lot.
appreciate him.
Yeah, me too. He shoulders a lot. My nemesis is gonna be surrounding the Super Bowl. Remember Sports Illustrated, that company that used AI, writers? How were they in a position to have a Super Bowl party? I mean, it's wild to me
What's the
because
private equity company that owns the brand? It's not them.
okay, so instead of paying writers, they decided they would have a big lavish party at the Super Bowl instead. I don't know, Rachel. Just to me, it just rubs me the wrong way. So that's my problem right now. When I see something like that, and there's no trickle down effect for people working for that actual company, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It is a private equity firm that bought the brand of Sports Illustrated and got it as, a lot of media that has happened too. And so that private equity firm can spend their money however they want, and that is how they have chosen to spend it,
Right,
I
which I
guess.
think is unfair.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree, especially given the reputation that Sports Illustrated used to have with
Yeah,
incredible sports reporting and the
yeah,
long form work that
yeah,
magazine used to have was just really, really good. I just remember always looking forward to getting that magazine in the
absolutely.
mailbox and reading those stories. But it's a different day and age
I
right
know.
now when it comes to all this. But yeah, that will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We will be back tomorrow to talk Flyers versus Utah. We're going to talk Lehigh Valley Phantoms and so much more. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions, thoughts on the big trade, you can let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.